Welcome everyone to the Tuesday, I was going to say Wednesday edition, the Tuesday edition of the RotoWire NFL podcast, of course, brought to you by Underdog Sports. Jake is already kitted up for the Brewers game. Hopefully they won't be a disappointment in the playoffs once more. We'll find out. Of course, they're getting underway here a little bit later in the afternoon, but we're going to dial in on the waiver wire pickups for this week, unlike at least last week, maybe even the week before. There's some relevant names, and unfortunately that we're doing the show on Tuesday, we'll have to probably find more injury information on a few situations to come, but we'll get to all those players and what the strategy should be with that in just a second. Let's get to the music. Welcome, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of the RotoWire NFL podcast brought to you by Underdog Sports. I'm Joe Bartel. You can follow me at JB Fantasy Sports. Of course, it's the October 1st edition, which means Jake is ready to go for playoff Brewers baseball. Thankfully, that will not be a distraction or something that'll be messing with us during the broadcast. But
we'd have rescheduled the showtime, so don't worry that we'd have just scheduled on that.
You were kind enough to the audience to not go to the Brewer game, so you could be here with us today.
Yeah, I turned down a ticket just for you guys.
That's exactly it. So we'll get to those top 5 waiver wire pickups for both Jake and I in a second, but let's get a word from our sponsors. Underdog, we're proud to partner with Underdog Fantasy for the NFL season. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and it's also the fastest growing app in the industry. In addition to their popular best ball contest, Underdog also offers great DFS pick'em games. Pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in the week for a chance to win big, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money in the single night by picking between 2 and 8 players to build a pick'em entry. I think right now there's a boost for WNBA pick'em entries out there. If you go to the Underdog app, you can find that right away. And of course, there's first deposit matches galore. So sign up with RWNFL to claim your first pick plus free time first deposit offer up to 1,000 in bonus cash. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with the promo code RWNFL to claim your first free pick plus first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Must be 18 plus years older, 21 plus years in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 in Alabama, Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms and conditions apply. Consider play. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text next step to 53342. For New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. All right, Jake.
And I want to add on to Underdog. RotoWire Picks and Props app, all those boosted plays that you're talking about.
Yes.
The RotoWire Picks and Props app on the site or on the app. The app's a free download, then you can pick subscription options from there. But we will highlight all of those boosted plays you're talking about, as well as many more in comparison with our projections and other customizable weighted factors for you to make your best picks and best decisions on Underdog. And I believe they got something in the works or just implemented it where you can take your card and upload it straight to Underdog from the app. So definitely check that feature out. We don't plug that enough, but it's an awesome for your higher or lower games on Underdog or any pick'em site there.
I think I saw that they're doing boosted odd totals or off on the higher lower stat totals every day this week, or I'm sorry, every day this month for October. So the push notification lending me some advice here for Underdog, but we love using them quite a bit and happy to be partnered with them for the NFL season. So let's dive into this, Jake, the top 5 waiver wire pickups. We have 2 people in the chat already asking about Anthony Richardson. We were talking off air about that situation. I think the Colts overall, we'll have to kind of find out. So when we're giving this information, again, you're listening to this on Tuesday, you're watching this live right now, we're only working with like 80% of the knowledge that the NFL teams want to give us, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I put Joe Flacco down as kind of a standalone discussion, with Anthony Richardson. But before we hit the quarterbacks here, we got to do our top 5 pickups overall, right?
We do. Yep. I think so. Let's go ahead, because our lists are pretty close. So why don't you rattle off your top 5, and then I'll kind of make my argument as to why 1 or 2 of these players should be higher on your list.
Yeah, exactly. I will. I'll run my top 5. I don't want to do too much of the supporting argument. We'll get to that a little bit later when we do our deep dive, because there are a lot of moving pieces here. But number 1 has to be Kareem Hunt. You take a stab at this Chiefs backfield as long as you have a guy, and after another Carson Steele fumble, Kareem Hunt was the man the rest of the way out. So he is number 1 for me. Number 2 for me is Trey Sermon of the Indianapolis Colts. I don't have a clue what this means, but Jonathan Taylor has a mild high ankle sprain, and he hasn't. Apparently, he's been ruled out for IR. I don't think that bodes super well for playing next week. So Trey Sermon is number 2. Then I'm going to wide receivers. Number 3, Dontayvion Dontayvion Wicks of the Packers. Make no mistake, he did not have a great game on Sunday, I don't think, despite what the numbers say. But he did get a lot of targets, and I think he can correct some of those drops. I think a lot of those passes that hit him in the hands, that hit him between the numbers at big times, that just kind of shows what his ceiling could be in a ceiling game. So Dontayvion Wicks, number 3. Number 4, I kind of went back to a retread, but Justice Hill is only 14% roster. He is the best wide receiver the Ravens seem to have, and he is excellent. That's probably really a PPR league limit, though. And speaking of PPR leagues, I'm going Wan'Dale Robinson of the Giants. He got double-digit targets on Thursday Night Football, in case you forgot about that. And, of course, Malik Neighbors is dealing with a concussion. With the long week, he'll probably be able to play. But just if they were to hold him out, I could see Wan'Dale being a startable option there. So how does that compare to yours, Joe?
Yeah, that's effectively the same for my list. I did have Dontayvion Wicks number 2. You're absolutely right. As somebody that watched that game for 2 quarters, I turned it off after the second interception, Jake. I could not watch that first half, and I was box score watching for quite a while. I thought Wicks had one of the worst games he's had in a long time, at least from a relevant playing perspective.
And the crazy part is he ended with a good fantasy stat line.
Right. You would never know that was a guy that I was like irrationally yelling outside my window, like, gosh, Dontayvion Wicks, if you're only better. We could talk about Dog missing multiple field goals. Hopefully he's cut. We'll have to find out here in the coming days. But I think Dontayvion Wicks, if he plays even marginally up to his potential, the Packers do win that one despite the deficit they put themselves in the first half. So I'm with you. Dontayvion Wicks number 2 for me, especially with the idea that Christian Watson's going to be out multiple weeks. And to this point, Jake, I mean, this is another unfortunate injury. It's not a soft tissue one like we've had in past years.
It's not related to the things that have been nagging him, but
I think
really
if you're
can't
the Packers,
shed the injury-prone label.
If you're the Packers, I think Wicks has to just be the number 3 receiver. Like at this point, reliability is an ability, and Watson does not possess that. So I think Wicks is one of those guys rest of season that you're getting a lot of fantasy value of. And certainly he won't have as good of a fantasy day as he did last week. But you're talking about a flex play week in and week out. I think Dontayvion Wicks fits. So Kareem Hunt was number 1 for me as well, too. Unfortunate because I was pounding the table for Carson Steele as a 35, 40% budget guy. Completely wrong on that one. Dropped the ball. Hopefully you guys faded me, and my advice would have been very good for most of your fantasy teams this year. But that one's a tough pill to swallow because Kareem Hunt clearly seems to be the feature back. And then I listed outside of our list, outside of your list. I think it's actually true. I'd rather have this Trey Tucker over Wan'Dale Robinson. I have Trey Tucker number 3, and I'm going to give this. We dunk on Uncle Ted a lot, friend of the channel.
Yep.
Often talks about. He had stuck in towards the last 10 or so minutes. Trey Tucker reference. Look at that. We should pick him up. And on my Wednesday show with Jim Coventry, Uncle Ted saying the same thing. Jim and I kind of laughed at him. I did my whole Roshan Johnson bit with Uncle Ted. Well, he was right because Trey Tucker was targeted often. They've been doing jet sweep to them now. He scored a touchdown that last week as well, too. And this news about Davante Adams effectively playing his last snap with the Raiders, I think is very crucial. So Trey Tucker is in my top 3, and I think can be picked up everywhere at this point.
Hang on a sec. Where are you getting this Davante Adams news? It was uncertain for week 5.
Davante Adams did an interview with Kay Adams, of course, of NFL Network, I think. And
husband and wife, right? No, I'm just
kidding. We would all wish to be husband and wife with Kay Adams, I think, at this point. Yeah. And she had asked Davante if he had seen the report about Antonio Pierce liking a Instagram post that had said Davante Adams has played his last snap with the Raiders. And he had said there's been no talk from the front office, no talk from the head coach since he was out last week, and that he's just preparing to do whatever is the next step. Fair. That sounds like words to me that Davante Adams will be gone. And then there's a report today that they're gauging interest the Raiders are on what the value for Davante Adams is. Sure. I'm assuming Adams is going to be traded at this point.
See, okay, so that's very interesting because I actually had Trey Tucker as my number 5 pick, but I took him off for Wan'Dale Robinson. For a couple of reasons being, I didn't quite go down this social media rabbit hole with Davante Adams that he might not ever come back for the Raiders. I'm still not quite sure how much stock I want to put into that. And also number 2 is they have Patrick Surtain and the Broncos this week. So I don't know if Trey Tucker's the type of guy that gets that attention and if maybe Surtain just plays aside if they don't have a standout receiver. But, just really a not good team against to want to target when you have, the wide receivers on the other team there. So for those reasons that me believing Davante comes back and the bad matchup this week, I put Wan'Dale Robinson on over Trey Tucker, but he's definitely on the radar.
I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat. I'll try to answer them throughout the show, but I think there's a lot of specific relevance to those as we get positionally. So quarterback, running back, receiver,
absolutely,
throughout the show. So just to reinforce again for the top 5 list for folks, Kareem Hunt, Dontayvion Wicks is in that mix. Wan'Dale Robinson or Trey Tucker, Trey Sermon as well, depending on the stats of Jonathan Taylor. We'll get to more of that in a little bit later in the show. And then Justice Hill, I think, could be certainly in that equation as well. I had listed Tank Bigsby as well for the Jaguars with ETN's weird situation too. So at least 7 or 8 guys that I think are worth picking up in most formats. Now, 10-team leagues, you might be out of luck. I think it's the shallower leagues probably is Kareem Hunt and maybe Wicks, and that's it. But
yeah, Hunt and Wicks are your priority ads in a tier of their own. There are a couple guys I threw in that are over our 50% threshold that you want to check for, and that's a good reason to stay tuned and catch us, as the show goes on here. But yeah, for the most part, for the shallower leagues, there are 2 priority ads, then the rest are. I mean, Trey Sermon could be a priority ad once JT gets rolled out, or if we get more info on that.
Right.
But again, Tuesday, it's a little too early in the week to decide.
A reminder to folks that we are entering the bye weeks for the first time this season as well too, and 4 relevant teams, or at least 3 in the case of the Eagles, Lions, and Chargers. Now, you're not necessarily playing Justin Herbert, and Titans being the other one, you're not playing Will Levis. But from a quarterback position, I think these bye weeks are actually going to be very pivotal in making your decisions. And we'll circle back to the Joe Flacco conversation in just a second, because I think that is a real key piece of the quarterback streaming outcome. But first, a word from our sponsor, Circa Sports. It's football season. The best place, of course, to catch the games is at Circa Resort Casino in downtown Las Vegas. It's featuring the best pool in the history. Obviously, of course, Stadium Swim. It's got 3 levels, 6 different pools, and a 143-foot diagonal screen. It's perfect for your Saturday, Sunday combo of college football and NFL. And whether it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, all of the days, Stadium Swim is your America's favorite place to watch football. And no matter the size of your group, Stadium Swim is the place for you. From owner suites to cabanas, day beds to stadium booths, there are seats and choices for everyone out there. And the best part, Stadium Swim is open 365 days a year, not like Wisconsin. With the temperature-controlled pools, it's a great place to catch the games all season long. Stadium Swim located at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Book today at circalasvegas.com. All right, Jake, what's our strategy here in the streaming quarterback section?
Also, again, I got to comment on the ad read. The Circa Las Vegas, I'm getting snaps from my friends out there, and that pool is booming until late at night, until super late at night. So, I mean, it looks like a great place to celebrate your fantasy football wins or, commiserate your losses there. So, yeah, I'll say everything about Circa. But anyway, yes, the Week 5 buys. We got Eagles, Chargers, Lions, Titans. When it comes to a quarterback discussion, obviously Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, those are guys that you were starting close to every week at this point in the season. And the first name that you really have to talk about is Joe Flacco of the Colts. And I was debating throwing him in the 2 quarterback section, or do we take a little time to discuss him as a standalone option? And I think it's worth it. I think we need to, because Anthony Richardson, we don't really know what's going on with him. He's being told to everybody that he's day-to-day, but apparently he has oblique and abdominal strains. And I don't know about you, but if I have an oblique and an abdominal strain, I can't throw. And guess what? He couldn't throw before that, right? So this is a situation, we talked about this a little bit. We don't like to speculate too much. Well, actually, we really do like to speculate. But, if the Colts coaching staff wants to keep their jobs and keep their regime, they have to win games. And that means maybe sitting Anthony Richardson down for a little extended recovery timeline, because I think that you and me are both in agreement that Joe Flacco gives them a much better chance to win games right now. And as someone that has, I think, 30-40% Michael Pittman exposure, I certainly want to have Joe Flacco be the quarterback. And not only that, he helps guys like Josh Downs too. And, we're behind a good offensive line. I think Joe Flacco is... in single quarterback leagues, it might be tough. He'll be right there, but in 2 quarterback leagues, I'm hoping he can become a priority ad based on what we know by the end of the week here.
Yeah, going against Jacksonville this week, Colts, I think, have lost something like 4 or 5, maybe even longer games in Jacksonville over the past years or so. Jacksonville's not looking good though. Like this is not that great of a team, and kind of a must-win scenario. In the picks against the spread article I do every week, I did pick Jacksonville minus 2.5. I don't feel great about it, but I'm rattling all of this because a guy like Josh Downs had 22 fantasy points in full point PPR this week. Michael Pittman, I was saying drop, trade, get rid of, do anything possible. He goes nuclear in 3 quarters with Joe Flacco. So like the fantasy implications for everyone, and that's not even talking about like an AD Mitchell of sorts too, where an injury to pop up, he could fall into a fantasy relevant spot, is entirely dependent on if you have a good quarterback in there, which at this point is not Anthony Richardson. We don't really know. I think if like the key point for me is the front office's jobs might be on the line. I don't know. Like Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay have a really good relationship, and it's almost to a fault, I think, from a roster building perspective at times. That's the last owner that I think would want to fire their general manager. But this Richardson thing has not went well. He has not looked very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought for certain the Steelers were going to trounce the Colts. Yeah. And then Flacco enters in and kind of changes the whole outcome of that equation.
And I'm not even sure Anthony Richardson is a lost cause entirely. I think like a lot of rookie quarterbacks, he could benefit from just some time on the sidelines, want to actually get healthy, because I don't think he's ever been fully healthy, since, week 2 or 3 of last year, maybe. I just think there would be some benefit. You could always go back to it down the road, or imagine if you game plan for Joe Flacco and something happens mid-game and you switch to Richardson. The whole game plan is out the window, right? So there's just so many advantages to going with Flacco, and I hope we get some clearance on that as the week goes on here. Obviously, if you got waivers Tuesday night, you maybe make a small bid on Flacco in your 2 quarterback leagues, and then it becomes more interesting as the week goes on and we see what happens, because I bet he'll clear waivers in a lot of 12-team leagues too.
Yeah, especially non-Superflex. I think Superflex, the Scott Fishbowl, or whatever. Like,
he's getting taken in those, yeah.
Right. So like the top streamer options: Derek Carr against the Chiefs, right around that 50% threshold. Geno Smith, we saw look pretty good against the Giants.
Yep.
Dak Prescott didn't really do a whole lot, but that was a Thursday game last week. I like both of those over Joe Flacco, but Fields against the Cowboys, I have to imagine in competitive leagues, Fields already picked up.
Yeah. Well, and the Cowboys defense hasn't actually been very good this year, and they lose Micah Parsons and I believe one more starter.
And DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence for week 5. So there goes a ton of their pass rush. And, I mentioned this later in the defense section, but you can cut the Cowboys defense if you have to.
Yeah, and I'll play Joe Flacco over Deshaun Watson over an Andy Dalton, and Dalton has been totally fantasy relevant for the past 2 weeks now. But I think that's the scenario which we're talking about quarterback streamer. So maybe you have to play Joe Flacco. Like Kirk Cousins against the Saints on Thursday or Joe Flacco, where would you lean if we knew Flacco was going to get the start this week?
Probably Flacco over Cousins.
I think so too, right?
Yeah, Cousins, that offense has been weird, and it's just not happening.
Yeah, so it's a really competitive question, but unfortunately one that we probably can't answer midday Tuesday with the information we have right now from the Colts in regards to their quarterback situation. Talk about another non-competitive place or weird situation. It is the Dolphins offense, right? Tyler Huntley came in, was supposed to be better than Skylar Thompson. At least I said that. I guess by default, kind of did.
It's a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
At least fantasy-wise, he's going to be better because of the rushing, obviously, and he takes the rushing touchdowns from the running backs there. So, yeah, Tyler Huntley started for Skylar Thompson. I'd imagine that happens another week. Tua's still on IR. Tyler Huntley probably gives him a better chance to win, even if it's not pretty, but, I guess we'll see. And then, of course, on the other side of that terrible, terrible Monday night game, Will Levis went down with a shoulder injury. He's going to get an MRI. I haven't seen results on that yet. A familiar name, if you didn't catch the game last night, Mason Rudolph stepped in for that game and pretty much game managed his way. They did this with a rushing attack. I had streamed the Dolphins' defense in a lot of weeks, but they also got bit by injuries. And, it didn't really work out this week, so we'll be back to streaming again.
Because I was not watching that side of the Monday night doubleheader very intently. Do you think Will Levis was injured or was he benched? Because it came directly after another pitiful interception. He was with his helmet on at times on the sideline. I think Mason Rudolph gives that team a better chance to win. And I kind of wonder if the Titans just kind of made that call.
Yeah, the way things are going, I wouldn't necessarily disbelieve that, but would they really go out of their way to send him for an MRI if he wasn't actually hurt in the least bit?
It's not going to cost them that much. Might as well just do it anyway.
Well, it got reported, so okay, yeah, fair enough. I get it. That could have easily happened as well. I didn't get that vibe, but it wouldn't shock me.
Titans on a bye this week, so we probably won't know any information otherwise until
exactly.
To come.
Yeah, they'll both clear waivers in 2 quarterback leagues anyway. There wasn't a whole lot else going on there.
I'm not sure if you saw the meme earlier on social media, but it was like Tyreek Hill needing a quarterback, Patrick Mahomes needing a receiver. What could be? And I it was one of those SpongeBob vlogs. There's so many different meme eligible things for SpongeBob, but
verbal meme.
Man, it would verbal memes are always the best. That would be a really interesting scenario if you're the Dolphins right now who've kind of entered a season of hell. But I'm with you on that one.
Could you cut Justin Herbert with the bye week upcoming? Do you think that after his bye he'll either be still available or the replacement level will be just as good?
Well, I had talked about cutting Jared Goff last week, and I could still see some people doing that, but he looked exceptional. So yeah, I would definitely cut Justin
That
Herbert.
offense looked pretty dang
Finally,
exceptional. Now, granted, Julian Love left for the Seahawks, so their new Legion of Boom took a big ding, as did my Stake League IDP. But yeah, no, that offense looks stellar, and it looks like there are a lot of ways it can beat you. Looks like both backs are great for Detroit. So yeah, I'd have a hard time getting rid of Jared Goff here with the bye coming up.
all right. Before we get to the running backs, and again, the conversation regarding both Kareem Hunt and Trey Sermon, let's get a word from our sponsors here, Blue Wire. Okay, we're back. And again, talking about the different running back free agent options, Kareem Hunt and Trey Sermon have both made our top 5 waiver wire list. But I'll wave the white flag once more as a guy that had liked Carson Steele a lot, was aggressively bidding him in a few spots. Second fumble over 2 weeks. He's effectively done. Kareem Hunt was called up from the practice squad and gets 15 touches right away, most coming in that second quarter and onward. I mean, it certainly seems like it's Kareem Hunt's backfield to lose.
Yes, exactly here. So, I mean, I got to wave the flag too a little bit. I was pushing for P Ryan over Steele, so I guess maybe that's a little bit. I mean, he still scored a touchdown last week, and he's got 7 PPR points in back-to-back weeks. So P Ryan still might be worth keeping around just in case. But yeah, Steele arguably goes to the drop list at this point here because he just hasn't got it done here. So, to recap this story here, he lost a fumble on the game's opening drive, and then the whole rest of the game, Carson Steele had 1 carry and 2 targets. And then after not playing in the first quarter, Kareem Hunt, I'm saying, did not play in the first quarter. He played 50% of the snaps thereafter, basically split time with Samaje Perine, who I think is still fantasy relevant in this backfield.
He is, more than Steele. Certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Hunt saw 17 of the 27 running back opportunities, which are, targets and carries after the first quarter here. So statistically, yes, it's Hunt. I admittedly wrote Kareem Hunt off. I thought that they were just signing him for depth and they had their mind made up. I thought that he was washed too, but now what I'm reading into it is that apparently he was fighting through an injury most of last season. So that's kind of what made him look largely ineffective or you're just, not really be relevant. And now he apparently had the surgery he needed. He's healthy and he's ready to go. Any running back that is RB1 in this Chiefs offense is immediately fantasy relevant and immediately startable on a week-to-week basis. And right now, that's Kareem Hunt. When it was all said and done, he ended up with 16 touches, and that's compared to 5 for Perine and only those 3 touches for Steele. So Steele's probably toast. Perine was still the third down back. He played 80% of snaps on third down, and he vultured a touchdown. So, keep in mind we can't have too crazy high expectations for Kareem Hunt, but I'm definitely going to start starting him in the leagues where I added him that were deeper, where I took a stab. This week they are playing at home against the Saints. And it's a pretty tough matchup. They're number 11 against running backs in half-point PPR formats. So nothing crazy about the matchup. But Kareem Hunt, who is 36% rostered, and that number is definitely affected by first-come, first-serve waiver leagues who watch that game play out. They were one of the late games. I think that was our game that was nationally televised at the end there. So a lot of people saw that game. But Kareem Hunt, again, if you missed the beginning of the show, he was our number 1 overall pickup. And you're getting at least a good 6 weeks out of him. We'll see. While we wait for an update on Pacheco.
So I have 2 questions related to Kareem Hunt. And I'm going to play the devil on the shoulder a little bit with this. Again,
sure.
I've already admitted the white flag. I was wrong on Carson Steele. Do you really think this is a must-start guy in an offense that now is missing Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice? Like the Rashee Rice aspect of things, I think is really consequential. We saw Xavier Worthy get a massive touchdown. I think the Chargers defense is pretty good. And the game script was 2 teams that effectively didn't want to make a mistake and lose the game. So let's just run the ball, play it safe. Chiefs and Chargers both did this. It's not something I'm taking away like rest of season. I'm trying to trade away Mahomes in dynasty leagues or anything like that at the moment because I think he's outside of quarterback 12 rest of season with the multitude of injuries this receiving core has had. I think by default they're losing a bit of their luster. It's Mahomes, it's the Travis Kelce aspect of things. The Chiefs are so good; they win football games, but I'm not sure they're going to win you fantasy games.
Yeah, see, I think this whole situation can be salvageable. I mean, I was just kind of tuned into the whole deal that Hollywood Brown was going to be out for the season. But I think they have something in Xavier Worthy, and they're going to be able to design plays for him. I think that Travis Kelce is going to have to be ready to step up.
Has to be.
Kelsey is going to, I mean, I would say Kelsey is tight end one rest of season with the volume that he's going to be forced to get now. Now, will that volume run him into the ground? Will he, we'll see, but he looked like his old self on Sunday, and they're going to have to continue to do that. And are we really going to rule out the whole cap doesn't exist thing and the Chiefs trading for somebody to make that? So, I mean, that makes things interesting. Now, Kareem Hunt, I'm not sure if you're set at running back. I'm not sure I'd go dump, the entirety of your remaining fab on him because, again, Pacheco will come back at some point down the stretch, right in time for the fantasy playoffs, and maybe Hunt will have done enough to earn a role prior to that. But there is an expiration date on Hunt. But if you're like me and was heavily exposed to Pacheco, I need this stopgap here, and there's not a better running back. Even the next guy we're going to talk about, Trey Sermon, has a 1-2 week shelf life max, and then goes right back on the shelf as soon as Jonathan Taylor comes back. So at least with Kareem Hunt, you're getting a good 5-6 weeks left, I think, of a very, very a lot of productivity in one of the league's better offenses.
So where are you putting the free agent bid on? Like, are we doing like 20% of our budget, higher than that? Around that range, like what's your thoughts?
Yeah,
again,
I mean, I'm still trying to replace Pacheco. So in those leagues, I'm thinking a $37-$38 bid is what I'm going to do. Because what good is getting Pacheco back for the playoffs if I'm not in an opportunity to make the playoffs? Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of leagues where I'm struggling hard in the RB2 category or even the RB1 category. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's situational for me. If you don't need him, you're still probably throwing down a $22 keep him honest bid to prevent other people from getting him.
So there's been enough action through the first 5 weeks of the waiver wire period that I think my statement I'm going to make here is subjective in how you do it, but there's enough backfields, and we'll talk about Blake Corum at the end of the running back section, for example, that I think there are points of the season where you're going to find a Jordan Mason level obvious 1-for-1 replacement. Now, can you afford to wait in your case like with Pacheco? Probably not. Will that even happen? If I think it could, no. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of what you're doing speculating wise. It's unfortunate, but this is sort of like primed for the people who are already 3-1 and 4-0 to really take advantage of the waiver wire periods to come. Because I do think there are backfields that are going to be more obvious replacements, kind of like what Cam Akers did for the Texans, even though Cam Akers is really bad. Like, there's those situations that are possible, but you might not have time if you're 1-3.
Yeah, I'll take a Kareem Hunt situation over a Cam Akers situation any single day of the week. Now, we have a handful more of these situations that we're going to talk about right now.
Well, hold on, just one more second on this, Ben.
Yeah.
The Cam Akers situation was bad. I mean, Cam Akers was getting a ton of the workload. Dare Gumawale at the very end got a bit more involved. It's just that Cam Akers isn't good. That's what I'm saying. Like, I would love Blake Corum if Kyren Williams were out because that's the 1-for-1 guy. I know Ronnie Rivers, whatever's around.
Ronnie Rivers will take that work. It sucks, but he will.
Jesus. All right, we're not going to do this. But like,
Corum was active but played only on special teams. That's a sign.
Oh boy, here we go. I mean, that's fine. That's all right. Well, hopefully we never have to come to that for Kyren Williams managers out there, but it's just something that's in the back of my mind. Let's go to Trey Sermon. And the unfortunate part, again, we're doing the show on Tuesday, midday afternoon. We don't really know the status of Jonathan Taylor. Boy, I think we can infer things with some of the comments that have been made.
Yes, so Jonathan Taylor, again, mild high ankle sprain, if you missed the beginning of the show. Apparently he's not a candidate for IR, but what is the fact that question is being asked and answered seriously tell us? That makes things interesting here. The injury didn't happen until midway through the fourth quarter, so there wasn't a real clear backup, right? But we assume it's going to be Sermon because he's really the only other back that saw touches. Maybe Tyler Goodson gets involved in a passing down role, but that's, again, do you want a passing down back when Richardson is the quarterback? Not really. Maybe when Flacco is the quarterback. So really, Trey Sermon's the only guy worth rostering. And the thing is, we have to touch on him and put him in our top 5 because he's only 1% rostered. There's so many of our leagues. I bet you we're going to look, and I'll have 7 of 8 leagues where Kareem Hunt is already snatched up. But Trey Sermon will be out there in every single one of them. So we definitely have to think about that. And, despite Richardson's struggles, we talked about this quarterback situation at length, but RotoWire still ranks Indianapolis as the number one offensive line in football in terms of consistency and just the talent of those players, and they've fortunately been able to avoid injury here. So I think any offensive line, I mean, we saw that get Zach Moss a big contract in Cincinnati, or
Sure, yeah.
big by running back terms. We saw that offensive line last year get Zach Moss, someone who we thought might have been washed. He went and got a pretty good contract after a handful of good games. I don't think Trey Sermon's quite the same kind of back, and maybe not quite as explosive, but if Flacco's the quarterback, there are goal line carries out there for Sermon, and there's tons of opportunity, which, we always talk about 50-50 skill opportunity. He's getting about 48 of the 50 opportunity points in this situation here. So, again, that's only as long as Jonathan Taylor is out, but, again, a lot of us can't afford to be losing any games at any cost. So Trey Sermon's the guy. He's my number 2 running back pickup this week.
So Lee asks a good question. I guess I want your take. If you have Jonathan Taylor, who's a more valuable pickup this week, Trey Sermon or Kareem Hunt?
It's still Kareem Hunt because you're going to get more weeks. Now, granted, the Colts could come on and make an actual truthful announcement about Taylor, which has been few and far between among head coaches this year. Of course, that could happen and change the outlook for Taylor. But of course, you have to. Your money goes for Hunt in this situation because you're going to have, like I said, 5-6 weeks of really good utility, and then when you get Taylor back, well, guess what? You have another running back, or you have another flex that you can use on your bye week. If you take Sermon and you end up winning that bid and you get Taylor back, then Sermon he's worthless when Taylor's back. There's really no need to play him at all. So you still bid on both in that situation, Lee, but Hunt has to be the first option.
So I think, again, Trey Sermon and Kareem Hunt, to a certain extent, should be picked up in every league moving forward. They should be outside of our threshold, at least for Sermon. We'll have to see on Jonathan Taylor, but certainly Kareem Hunt. Obviously, Justice Hill looked pretty good. We had him on your top 5 list, and I had mentioned Tank Bigsby, who's gotten far more work now after his dismal year 1 for Jacksonville. So situationally, I think both need to be rostered a bit more, and at least in the case of my random non-competitive-ish 12-team leagues, I was seeing Tank Bigsby. I think most places, both those guys have been picked up a fair amount.
Mm-hmm. I'd kill to be able to roster and start Justice Hill in Stake League right now, given my running back situation here. I mean, we've discussed Justice Hill before, so I was debating even putting him on, but we need to bring it up again. His floor is 5.2 PPR points this season. Obviously had a ceiling game of 21.6. Derrick Henry had a massive game, and you wouldn't think in a game where the Ravens are largely blowing out their opponents that the pass-catching running back would have a big role. Wrong. Justice Hill had twice as many targets. He had 6 targets, caught all 6 of them for 78 and a score. I mean, granted, he's not going to get the long RB fade every week. People are going to kind of watch out for that. So, maybe not hold that high expectation every week. But he had twice as many targets as Nelson Aguilar, who was the next closest pass catcher in targets, with 3. So even in a game flow game, now think about taking this the other way, and the Ravens are behind, and Hill has to play more than Henry. There's just a lot of ceiling there. And then week 5, he's at Cincinnati, who's number 20 against running backs in half-point PPR formats. So Justice Hill is interesting.
I think the Bengals win that one, too. I think the Ravens are going to be in more passing situations than they certainly were Sunday night against the Bills.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are going to find their stride here coming up real soon.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know Mr. Joe Burrow here on my side of things certainly wants that from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, certainly. So. And T. Higgins is getting back in the swing of things, too, and they found something in Yosivas while those guys were limited or out. So,
and again, talking about Tank Bigsby real quick, ETN's it feels scatterbrained in the choices that Jacksonville's making. They play Indianapolis. The Colts have lost, I think it's either 4 or 5 years in a row in Jacksonville. I think that might change this go around, and if that's the case, it could be Doug Peterson fired. So whenever I'm giving a recommendation on Tank Bigsby and to a certain extent Travis Etienne, it's with the idea of, well, we're talking about one of the coaches that are odds-on favorite to be fired midway through the year. I don't know if that will occur, but that's what makes me very uneasy about the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't really have a ton of faith in going out and getting Tank Bigsby's usage has been weird. The Jags are bad. But we have to talk about this ETN situation. He started the game, then got pulled in the first quarter with a shoulder injury, was listed as questionable to return. More coach injury funny business this year, right? That won't ever see any consequences. Then he comes back in the game and takes 62% of the snaps after quarter 1 the rest of the way out. So it's clear ETN is still RB1. There might be a couple games when you ride Bigsby as the hot hand and they come by surprise, but you're going to pull all your hair out trying to predict which ones those Tank Bigsby games are, especially on a team this bad. So I'm not super interested, but I guess I still would rank him ahead of some of these quick hitters I got. Like, I don't know, Jalen Wright I threw back on here just because Mostert was out. Jeff Wilson suffered a pregame injury. Jalen Wright, 9 carries for 32 yards. That's one. He got one less carry, but more yards than A-Chain. He got one more carry but less yards than quarterback Tyler Huntley. So, I mean, funny how this goes. But that's the only other back that I really put in consideration this week. It's tough sledding out there, boys and girls, which is why Trey Sermon is probably going to go for a higher bid this week than you need to with bye weeks coming through.
You're gonna talk to me about Blake Corum on the drop list again, or we're just gonna move past that to spend time elsewhere?
I just want to say that I've already cut Blake Corum everywhere. He's no longer in my portfolio. I've got 0 shares for the rest of the way out. In addition to Corum, cut Khalil Herbert. Rashawn Johnson has passed ahead of him on the depth chart. DeAndre Swift is apparently back after this week. He's gone. And I'd honestly be thinking about cutting Cam Akers. He lost a lot of work to J.J. Taylor and Dare Ogunbowale last week. And, of course, the Mixon return is hopefully imminent because I have a little too much Mixon for my liking this year. So Cam Akers is going to be real close to that cut line, especially if we see Mixon get back on the practice field.
Akers definitely is a cut list. Instead of Blake Corum, I'll give you Trey Benson, who's clearly behind Amari DeMarcado, at least in the Cardinals' backfield. And I do think there's a situation where DeMarcado would be the main ball carrier as well as the pass catcher.
I think
if
he
Connor
stays
were to
third
get
down
injured.
back.
So.
I think he stays third down back.
Trey
Benson has actually been getting me like 5-6 points a week when I had to start him in Stake League because of my Pacheco and punt RB2 situation. But I'll take the back that's getting 10 carries a week over someone that's just playing special teams. Maybe that's short-sighted of me. It probably is.
The only situation where Blake Corum is going to be fantasy relevant is if Kyron Williams is out. And that's the same spot for Trey Benson. Benson got all of his work. If you look at Jerry's article in the fourth quarter when it was a complete
garbage
blowout.
But at least, hey, Benson plays on offense. We cannot say the same about.
Well, the Rams haven't gotten blown out yet. They play the Packers this week.
Exactly.
Change.
We'll wait and see. But here we go.
So we spent a lot of time at running back, which is a bit unfortunate because I actually think the receiver waiver wire tier is relatively deep this week. Like even if you're in some deeper 12-team leagues, there are guys you could pick up and play, and I think matter a lot. And I think the line first begins with Trey Tucker, at least in my mind, or Dontayvion Wicks. And let's do the Wicks conversation first, because again, you and I watched that game where we're active fans. That was a bad game football-wise for Dontayvion Wicks. You don't really care when he's got 5 for 80 and 2 touchdowns. Should have had a third touchdown. Another interception was a result of that. 2 separate challenge plays came back because Wicks didn't make easy catches. Like, we're talking about a massive game. If
missed the first one, caught the second one.
Fine.
But
again, I had tuned out for a lot of that because I was very angry.
Exactly. So yeah, as people that watched every snap of this game, or actually maybe not, you cut out for a bit.
Yeah, no, I took it. Yeah, no,
I was actually encouraging a move to red zone at the house that I was watching at, but was outvoted there. They wanted to stick with the Packers, so better fans than me. In any case, yes, Dontayvion Wicks obviously comes out, has a great statistical game. Didn't nearly reach the ceiling in that game that he could have. We have Jordan Love back, obviously. He had to shake some rust off in the first half, but he was looking better in the second half, and, I mean, had him within 6 points in that game at 1 point. So, Dontayvion Wicks is 100% in play because Christian Watson is out with another one of those mild high ankle sprains, whatever the heck that is. We don't know. I mean, we know LaFleur is going to we talked about this off air. Exactly. We talked about this off air. Coaches know that they aren't going to get punished for falsely reporting injuries. So, of course, I want the coach of my team to do the same thing, right? You keep doing it until there are actual consequences here. And but yeah, Christian Watson, guy can't catch a break, man. He apparently is going to avoid the IR. The thing's considered mild. I don't know, but this is a 3 wide receiver offense, a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. I don't think we see a ton of Musgrave and Kraft on the field at the same time. So that opens up the door for their talented receiver room, and Wicks is the guy that steps in. He had an awesome statistical game. If you would have never played him in fantasy last week for any reason, but if you did, you were happy. He has the potential to make you a lot happier here. And also look at Romeo Doubs too on the waiver wire. He was dropped by a lot of owners when Love went down, and rightfully so they weren't throwing the ball. I get it. Romeo Doubs just has a great knack for finding the gaps in the hole in the zone and getting open, and loves scrambling and just finding him. So
Still his favorite red
yep.
zone threat too. I
Yes,
think,
exactly.
as well.
Red zone there. I mean, Reed's creeping up there. I mean, Reed's still number one, but both Wicks and Dobbs are going to be fantasy relevant, borderline startable here this week. They're playing the Rams, who are 27th against wide receivers in half PPR. So that's a good thing if you're not following those rankings. They're a bottom 5 team against receivers. So yeah, definitely want to take a look at those guys.
I think so long as Watson's out, and I believe even after Watson returns, Wicks is kind of like a 8 to 12 point floor PPR play. Like he's going to get you 3 or 4 catches at minimum
Sure.
for 40 or 50 yards. And that has a lot of value to me if you were playing Jawan Jennings or you're missing A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith, or you have the Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. I mean, Rashee Rice out of the equation. There are so many relevant receiver names that I have to imagine almost everyone is at least having to grapple, especially entering bye weeks, with one of these waiver wire guys being a play. Wicks has that value to the point where I'm putting as much fab budget bids as I would for Kareem Hunt that I would on Dontayvion Wicks. Like I think that's going to matter rest of season more.
Especially, I mean, if you're a Rashee Rice owner, right? You lost Rashee Rice for the rest of the season. Wicks is the closest thing that's out there this week to being able to replace Rashee Rice's production.
And nothing is close, right? Like Rice was like a wide receiver 4 overall.
Exactly.
So like
but you need to get 80% of his production from somewhere.
Right.
You get it from Wicks this week. Now, there are a lot of other guys, but we talked about Tutu Atwell, Alan Lazard, Xavier Legette.
Legette, I'm circling back to that one.
Exactly. Legette, we want to he scored this week, and Thielen's on IR. Darnell Mooney, all these guys are worth checking up on here. But we wanted to hit Wicks first because 14%, a ton of availability. Then we kind of, if you go back to the beginning of the show, we debated a little bit between Wan'Dale Robinson and Trey Tucker. And I was on Robinson, you were on Tucker. How much of this you want to rehash? And I'll let you take it.
Well, I guess I'll just reiterate my strategy for Trey Tucker. And again, shout out to Uncle Ted. I've been dunking on him for a year plus now of his silly takes, but that was correct. The idea that Trey Tucker was involved. If Gardner Minshew were to be replaced as the starting quarterback, there would be some concern in my mind, because I think you're getting Trey Tucker rest of season as a wide receiver 6 in your fantasy team. That matters with injuries and bye weeks.
Sure.
Again, just kicking off. So while I'll do like a $22 or $23 bid on Wicks, $100 budget, I think for Tucker, I'm going like 12 or 13. And that would be more than Wan'Dale Robinson, who I think is still very relevant. I would rather have Legette over Wan'Dale Robinson, but that's just kind of where I'm at with Tucker with his rushing capability too.
Yeah, I don't think I'd actually make a bid on Tucker because I'm pretty confident he'll clear.
Oh, okay. You playing
if you want to be one of those stay up till 3 a.m. people, I'm pretty confident Tucker will clear.
You play in a little bit less competitive leagues than I do among the 16. So you're right. He probably does.
I don't know, man. I mean, I'd say at least 6 or 7 of my 8 are just as competitive.
I played Trey Tucker in Stake League this week, just to put. And again, my side of the Stake League is far more competitive than yours, so that's how that works.
Sure, okay.
I get that. Yeah, this is a joke around the office. That's what I said. So we mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson, Trey Tucker at the beginning of the show. If you want,
I rank Wan'Dale Robinson higher. He's got higher ownership, of course, but there's some first come first serve there, given he played on Thursday Night Football. He actually only played 65% of the snaps on Thursday Night Football. He was behind Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton, but he did get 14 targets and he caught 11 of them for 71 yards. I follow the targets, especially if it's PPR. Malik Neighbors has a concussion. I don't think it'll hold him out because he had the long week, but I guess we'll wait and see. And they get the Seahawks this week, who are pretty good against opposing wide receivers, but they lost one of their better defensive players in Julian Love. So watch out. Wan'Dale Robinson should probably get a look, especially short term, because Trey Tucker and the Raiders have Patrick Surtain and the Broncos this week.
I'm ranking it Wicks, Trey Tucker, Legette, Wan'Dale Robinson, rest of season for waiver wire pickup rankings right now. And the last one that at least we have to mention is Juju Smith-Schuster, who is the last man standing along with Justin Watson for the Chiefs in that offense.
Yep.
I had made the case earlier during the Kareem Hunt conversation that do we really think they're one of the best offenses in the league? Because I think there's merit saying that they're not anymore. But
I think Andy Reid is one of the best offensive coaches in the league.
And he can scheme guys really well. But somebody has to catch passes besides Travis Kelce. I don't think it's Xavier Worthy. I think Worthy has a very important role, but it's not the pass-catching role. So one of Watson and Juju Smith-Schuster probably should be picked up and could be even playable in certain matchups.
Yep, so Juju Smith-Schuster is the name, and I put him on here as kind of a tension grab, but I'm going to bait and switch and say Watson's the receiver that you want to target there. He got all the snaps that were going to Rashee Rice, basically, and Mahomes didn't even look at Juju. Like, Juju was on the field a lot, but Mahomes didn't even, not even in consideration, Juju. So Justin Watt, if you're going to pick up a Chiefs wide receiver, and I'm not even sure that's necessarily the move, but if you're going to go after one, Watson is the one, and he'll probably clear waivers too, where you can get away with the $0 bid. Some quick hits. You want to hit those quick? We're
Yeah,
coming up on time.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead and go right.
All right, so Josh Downs, 21%. His outlook, of course, for the Colts improves tremendously if Flacco is a quarterback, so keep an eye on that. Whittington from the Rams is back in play here. I don't think Kupp or Nakua come back until after the bye week, and Whittington was out there for 97% of snaps and saw a team-high 7 targets. That's interesting. Fast forwarding, Thursday Night Football, we got Mike Evans, McMillan, Trey Palmer, all questionable for Thursday Night Football here. And the next man up is Sterling Shepard, if you want to get real deep and you need to start. So I'm throwing that out there. I've heard worse names as a wide receiver 5 on a team, and Baker Mayfield in this offense is hot, hot, hot. So we're going to get that going. And then I saw Keon Coleman for the Bills. He's only 51% rostered. Obviously, this goes out the window if there's any kind of keeper incentive, because I think he's a guy that could come on late. But with Khalil Shakir showing some ankle soreness, Keon Coleman could be right there back in play. And then for cuts, given the Rams, receiving breakdown here with Tutu Atwell and Whittington, Tyler Johnson can definitely be cut. He was basically one good game that he had, and then he's been an afterthought since. You could probably cut Christian Watson. He wasn't doing all that much beforehand.
Yeah.
So Christian Watson goes to your drop list now.
Yeah, I've been picking up Jacob Whittington in a lot of places in my deeper leagues. Like that one, I think is
sure
something that will matter against that Packers defense, especially if Jair Alexander is not out or not playing again. And they're missing both their top 2 corners and Carrington Valentine as well too. So good call for Jacob Whittington. We probably have about 5 or so minutes left with the tight ends and defense. But first, a word from our sponsors real quick. Vivid Seats. Gear up for the gridiron with Vivid Seats and score tickets to the biggest games of the year. Every touchdown, every tackle, and every eye-popping play of your favorite team live and in person. And with Vivid Seats rewards, you can earn perks with every single purchase. Each ticket you buy gets you closer to your reward. Buy 10 tickets and cash in your credit towards your 11th ticket. It's that easy. Plus, Vivid Seats is offering $20 off your first $200 ticket purchase with promo code ROTOWIRE. That's code RotoWire, ROTOWIRE, from the upper deck to the front row. Vivid Seats has great tickets for all the 24 games that matter to you. Visit vividseats.com or download the app. Vivid Seats, experience it live. You could probably thank Jake for why the Brewers will lose tomorrow, because he got his Brewer tickets for Vivid Seats. I love
that. I don't want to hear any of that. I was undefeated for a good decade until my record was broken by the Diamondbacks this year. I'm going to blame Corbin Carroll and nobody else. I like my Brewers against a banged up Mets team. We got them directly from the source here, but if you if you still need tickets tomorrow to watch them close out tomorrow, go to Vivid Seats and check it out.
Well, you can also blame Zach Ertz for ruining my Ben Sinnott share, which, to be fair, I have still in all my dynasty leagues. I'm rostering Ben Sinnott in the deeper roster formats, but Zach Ertz has been fine among this tight end landscape at the moment.
Yeah, the tight end landscape is ugly, and we're kind of grasping at straws here for who's going to get 5 points on a given week here. We haven't talked about Ertz yet this year, but we know that Jaden Daniels is good, and Zach Ertz has caught 15 of his 16 targets for 150 yards. So he's obviously holding off the rise of Ben Sinnott, and it's not really a plus matchup for him against Cleveland this week, so so be it. A couple other guys under our threshold. I just mentioned all those Tampa Bay injuries and was thinking about Sterling Shepard, but this could actually be a Cade Otton week. Short week, he's clear of any injury status, and the matchup against Atlanta, it's a good matchup against tight ends. I didn't write their exact ranking down, but he's definitely in there. And then Tucker Kraft, obviously, he's a clear tight end 1 over Musgrave in Green Bay. Jordan Love is back, has a great matchup against the Rams. So, Cade Otton, Tucker Kraft, maybe Zach Ertz. If someone dropped David Njoku, he's 75% rostered in Yahoo, so 1 in 4 leagues he's out there. He could be returning to practice this week. And then I just threw a note in here because I don't know what to do about Kyle Pitts. I'm not sure I'm going to cut him yet, but he dropped 2 of his 3 targets this week. His only targets was when he was split way out. I'm surprised he's still tight end eligible, to be completely honest, and he'd be worthless if he wasn't. And he's losing a lot of playing time to someone named Charlie Warner. What's going on here? So I don't know about cut Pitts, but you're definitely going to bench Pitts if you have the roster spot too. I'd play Cade Otton over Pitts this week. I'd play Tucker Kraft over Pitts.
And with the cuts for David Njoku, I look at Pat Freiermuth too. Finally did good. Of course, the week I didn't play him in stake league, I would imagine he's probably in the 50-60% threshold. Like I do think it's a situation where you could look at Pat Freiermuth and probably play him in the same extent as you would over Kyle Pitts. So whereas the streaming defenses were not good last week, we actually do have some good streaming defenses this week, Jake.
Yeah, you got the Broncos without a Raiders, or with a Devontae Adams-less Raiders. So that's definitely good. And, of course, they're the home team. Defense hasn't been the problem in Denver, that's for sure. and they'll find a way to get crafty. And I mean, they've been good in every single category. So you have to think about that. Of course, more home teams. Might go back to the Seahawks. They're home against the Giants. They're back home. Granted, it's a short week, but I know we've hyped up a couple Giants players on the show. Well, really only Wandale, and we didn't hype him up that much. But
right.
This is still a team you want to target in fantasy. There's also the Patriots and the Dolphins, and I had the Dolphins in a couple of leagues. Because they were going against Will Levis and the Titans. Obviously, that didn't quite work out. Do I keep the Dolphins defense going against the Patriots on the road, or do I flip-flop and pick up the Patriots against the Dolphins? I think I'm going to shoot for Denver first, because Denver could actually be a team, with their schedule and just how they're playing in general, where their defense is viable for the rest of the season, and then you don't have to worry about it. So, yeah, Broncos number 1. I guess the Seahawks number 2, Pats and Dolphins 3-4 tie, however you want to do it. And I mentioned this earlier in the show, but you can drop the Cowboys defense because they're giving up a ton of points, and they don't have their sack guys in Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. So if you're looking for a stream, they could also be a drop this week, as were most of the streams from last week.
I'm right there with you. So that does it for us on this edition of the RotoWire NFL podcast, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. We'll get back to you with the Week 6 Waiver Wire pickups, more bye-week shenanigans after, or at least in best of luck to your fantasy lineups out there this week.
And go Brewers.